Shiba Inu. You know, the name itself just sparks so much debate. But if we push past all the hype and the memes, what are the numbers actually telling us? Well, today we're going to explain a deep dive analysis that uncovers some pretty serious structural risks that are baked right into this token's DNA. And look, this isn't about feelings or opinions, it's all about the math.
So this slide really gets to the heart of the problem. On the one hand, you've got the SHIB army. I mean, it's a huge, passionate community that's been able to create some incredible momentum. But on the other hand, you have the cold, hard math that, well, gives professional analysts nightmares. This is the central conflict we're digging into today, the raw power of community versus the unbending laws of economics.
All right, so where does all this risk even start? According to the analysis we're looking at, it all begins with one fundamental, just totally unavoidable problem: the absolutely insane number of SHIB tokens that exist. Just take a second and really look at this number. Seriously, we are talking about a supply of over 589 times trillion. A number that big isn't just a quirky little fact. It's like a mathematical wall. As you're about to see, it's the anchor that's constantly weighing down any potential for massive price gains, and it's pretty much the source of every other risk we're going to talk about. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around what that massive supply means in the real world, let's explore that popular goal you see all over the internet. What would it actually take for SHIB to hit just 1 penny? The answer is pretty mind-blowing. Okay, check out this chart. That bar way over on the right, that's the market cap SHIB would need to reach 1 cent. We're talking almost $6 trillion. Now look at the other bars. That would be 4 times bigger than Bitcoin's all-time high valuation, and it would make SHIB more valuable than the biggest, most powerful corporations on the entire planet. The amount of money needed to make that happen, it's just almost impossible to comprehend. And the analysis really hammers this point home. As this quote says, the math is just relentless. It's not about one quick surge of investment. No, to even hold a price like that, you would need a continuous, unimaginably huge flow of new money coming in, day after day after day. Now, I know what you're thinking. The common counter-argument is, what about token burning? But the analysis is really clear on this. While burns are happening, the amount being burned is so tiny compared to that gigantic total supply that it's described as economically insignificant. It's basically like trying to empty the entire ocean with a single bucket. The impact just doesn't register on a large scale. Okay, so if the math makes these huge price targets seem, well, nearly impossible, then what in the world is actually driving the value? The analysis argues it has way less to do with finance and a whole lot more to do with psychology. So the analysis makes a really important distinction here. On one side, you have intrinsic value. This is the kind of value that's built on solid stuff, like technology or revenue or real-world adoption. But on the other side, you've got hype value, which is powered by excitement, social media buzz, and just belief. The core argument is that SHIB's value is almost entirely built on hype, which, is kind of like a balloon. It can pop very, very easily. And this total reliance on hype and sentiment leads directly to these wild, extreme price swings. The source material uses this really powerful quote to classify something with this level of volatility not as a normal investment, but as a highly speculative gamble, where the risk of a sudden catastrophic loss is just always hanging in the air. And that extreme volatility you see here, it pretty much slams the door shut on serious institutional money. I'm talking about the huge funds that manage things like pensions. They need stability, verifiable utility, predictable returns, all things SHIB just doesn't have. And without that big, stabilizing money in the market, it's just left to the whims of social media trends, which only fuels that crazy cycle of hype and collapse. All right, so now we're going to shift from the psychology of the crowd to the actual structure of the market itself. The analysis points to these hidden risks, these powerful forces that are moving just below the surface that, honestly, most investors probably never even see. And here it is. This is one of the biggest hidden dangers: whale concentration. As this chart clearly shows, a massive slice of the entire SHIB supply is held by a very, very small number of anonymous wallets. This is not a balanced system at all. It's incredibly top-heavy. So why is that so dangerous? Well, because it means the financial fate of millions of small investors is basically in the hands of a few anonymous players. If just one of these whales decides it's time to sell, they could single-handedly trigger a market crash, leaving everyone else holding the bag. And that whale risk, it isn't the only problem under the hood. The analysis points to a whole chain of other issues. First up, execution risk. The team has made huge promises, a metaverse, a DeFi platform, but the risk of failing to actually build and deliver something that complex is really high. Then you've got a liquidity trap. This means that in a panic sell-off, there might not be enough buyers, so the price you get when you sell could be way, way lower than the price on your screen. On top of that, there's the tech risk from SHIB. It's a new system, which means it's more likely to have bugs or hacks or security holes. And finally, there's a bridge vulnerability. The system relies on a centralized bridge, which creates a single point of failure that could be attacked or could just fail. All of these issues, they all lead to the final and, maybe the most unsettling risk that the analysis identifies. The idea that in this market, there might not be a map and there might not be a compass. At the end of the day, the fundamental danger is this. There is no standard, accepted financial model to figure out what SHIB should be worth. Think about a stock. It has earnings, revenue. You can calculate a PE ratio. There are tools. With SHIB, there's no fundamental anchor like that to tell you if the current price is fair or way too high or maybe even too low. And the analysis wraps up with this really stark warning. When a market is divorced from economic reality, you can't navigate it safely. It basically means investors are walking a path with a blindfold on, relying on nothing but hope because there's no real data to guide their decisions. And all of that leaves us with this final, really provocative question that gets right to the very heart of this entire analysis. If an asset has no clear intrinsic value and no accepted model to figure out what it's worth, what is it that you're actually buying? That's the central question that every single person in this market has to answer for themselves.